Castle.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let me address this question, I guess, to Mr. Freeh. It's a very broad question, but it's something I'm interested in, but the others may chime in if you have good answers. And this is my concern. I have setting aside any questions about what the FBI did or did not do before September 11th, and even looking at the history of the FBI all the way back to Hoover and its pursuit, particularly of criminals in America, et cetera. It just seems to me that there is, and I'm not being critical when I say this at all, of anything that's happened or of the FBI or anybody else, but it just seems to me that there's a little bit of a disconnect between what the FBI does and the CIA does. And just because we say when they cross our borders and therefore the FBI is going to be involved, not the CIA, is necessarily the right answer as far as I can see. When I look at the CIA, I realize their ability, and we wish they had more, in languages and culture and knowledge of political situations or whatever. And these are things that, in my judgment, the average, heretofore, the regular FBI agent being trained really did not necessarily have. And without retroactively being critical of what's happened, do you have any thoughts or suggestions about the total structure? One of the things we need to do is determine how do we go forward in the future? What's in the best interests of America? And I'm not totally sure that the system can work that well because it has structural problems, not because of any failings of individuals or lack of communication or whatever it may be, but there just might be structural problems in terms of what the responsibilities are. And to some degree, I think of all the ones that are a little more of a fish out of water, it might be the FBI in that circumstance. Again, that isn't criticism. Do you get the drift of my question?
Yeah, I think I do. I think I do. Let me see if I can answer it this way. And, you know, we're not immune to criticism, and we should be criticized for some of the lapses and gaps.
But I'm not worried about all.
All right. Well, let's talk about your question then, if I can. I think the way to characterize it, the counterterrorism program is a unique program in this respect. At least when we're talking about international terrorism, we're talking about intelligence collection, primarily overseas, but also in the United States, and we're talking about law enforcement. There is a disconnect between the FBI and the CIA. It's called the National Security Act of 1946, a decision to prevent the CIA from becoming a domestic intelligence agency operating in the United States. Congress made that decision. I think it was a great decision then. I think it's a relevant decision now. The counterterrorism program, unlike the organized crime program, unlike the counterintelligence program, is a fairly new program. This was a program that started around 1990, 1991, 1993. Just look at our history of appropriations. We haven't been doing this a long time. We have been doing organized crime for several decades, counterintelligence for more than that, and bank robberies and investigations for 90-plus years. So there are some structural issues with respect to the administration of the program and the efficient coupling of our collection abilities overseas, which are primarily the agencies, not the FBI, and melding that together into a prevention program, which it should be primarily, but also an enforcement program. I don't think frustration that this has not worked as well as some other historical programs should result in the conclusion that, well, we have to do something radical like set up a domestic intelligence agency, which, and I agree with Senator Rudman, would be a huge mistake, in my opinion. I think what we have to do is resource it, integrate it, going back to Senator Shelby's questions, make sure we have a point where all the information flows and is retrievable and is mined and is utilized. But this is very, very hard, and I think the last point I make in response to you, this is very, very hard. It's not, as I was speaking to the chairman before the hearing, it's not like you go into a room and there's a machine and you press a button and you get all the data possibly available in one place, analyzed with some suggested leads. We may get to that point, and there may be some technology or software that gives us that ability, but there's no such thing. So there's always going to be gaps. There's always going to be points of light. There's always going to be intersections where something falls off the track. The comeback to that is redoubling our efforts, resources, training, technology, integration, changing the structures around. I don't think we have to invent the wheel.
Let me ask a quick follow-up. I'm going to run out of time in a hurry. And I I don't disagree with what you're saying. But sometimes I wonder if, you know, counterterrorism is fine and that kind of thing, but even if we don't separate it from the FBI, should the FBI be divided more so that there are people who focus just on this and then people who focus just on say, crime in the United States? I'm a little worried about the other aspects of the FBI being harmed by all this, too, that all of a sudden the scales have gone so drastically the other way that we're forgetting the other functions of the FBI too. Is there? I'm looking for an answer.
Okay, the answer is we have a division. We have a counterterrorism division,
right?
Which
but
I set up.
Is it really divided sufficiently? You think at this point that there?
We can do better. It's a new creature within the structure.
Exactly.
We have a counterintelligence national security division. We have a criminal division. You know, we have all these things. I think, you know, the organization is there, and as Senator Rudman said, the expertise in terms of the collection and the protocols necessary for enforcement and prevention are there. We just got to resource them and integrate them in a better way.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Freeh.